Hey everybody, hope you're having a good morning. I'm finishing up some coffee here, my Game of Thrones cup, Power of the Dragon and all that. Want to do something different today. Usually I do a bunch of inking videos. I think I'll just do a quick sketch, and not exactly sure what it's going to be, but let's figure it out. I'm thinking Red Sonja, just because I was reading some of old comments or comments about the old series that I wrote. Seems like whenever I start a sketch, I start with the head, kind of anchors everything. And I wish I was better at like storytelling in a single illustration. I think I'm a very good storyteller when it comes to panel-to-panel stuff, but a lot of the artists that I admire are really good with coming up with scenes or sort of a visual concept to what they're drawing. Chris Samnee's very good at it. It always feels like his pinups are like a scene in the middle of a story. I tend to draw poses, but eventually I think I want to start working more on like a story thing. Now, because I didn't really plan this out, like the way I've got her shoulders here, it's up higher on this side and lower here, just kind of going with the way she's standing. The sticking sound is I've got this rubber pad on the desk that keeps stuff from sliding around. So anyway, feel like let me adjust this. Let's see a little bit more of that. I feel like this is good. She's going to be holding her sword. Kind of discovering this as I go. I was going to have her looking this way, but the spine thing and like the sword being here feels like she should be looking over in this direction. So I just use a regular number 2 pencil a lot of times when I'm laying out, just because I find that I can just sketch better with it. Like a mechanical pencil, even with a really light lead, for whatever reason, I tend to either over render it or I'm digging in too deeply. So like I'm being very light here with the pencil. Like you can just move it along like that. That's how loosely I'm holding it. I used to like dig into the paper almost like I was creating braille art or something. And then you like erase it and then all the lines would still be there because you dug so deep into the paper, you know. Sonja's bikini armor is fascinating. Like, and I mean, it's in its entirety, from the sort of origin of Red Sonja's costume, meaning back to the 70s when the comic book version of her was created by Roy Thomas. And God, I'm sorry, I don't really know for sure who the artist was. But anyway, you know, it was this sort of idea of like an empowered female character, but like through the lens of the 70s and, you know, people who are trying to do something good, but also kind of saying some weird stuff at the same time about like rape and power and all kinds of stuff, you know. I mean, there's always danger of reading too much into things, which I think we do a little bit of these days. Like, it's important to sort of analyze and break down things and what they mean and, you know, what subtext and context, subtext we're putting out into the world or saying with things. But sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, as Freud would say. I don't know what Red Sonja Pretty happy with my run. It was the first thing that I wrote, my first series that I wrote, ongoing series. Some things I would change now, looking back. Kind of specifically her traditional origin story. It's a little heavy. It's a lot like Conan, except add sexual assault for some reason, which I don't think she needs to be the strong, vengeful character. I mean, I'm not saying anything original here. So I would have changed that and leaned more on sort of mythological aspect, which I did with Mike Carey. We wrote about this goddess figure who kind of took the child, Sonja, took her under her wing. She's still self-motivated. It's not like she was given any powers or anything like that. Just some guidance. Actually, I think I'm going to continue drawing this with the number 2 pencil. Anyway, all those thoughts are sort of garbled in my head right now because it's still early and I can't find a ruler. Oh, it's on the floor. Hold on. When you have a cat, just look on the floor. That's where your supplies will be. Anyway, yeah, so all that might have been, I don't know if any of that made sense. I also, I dig the bikini outfit. I mean, I don't think she should wear it all the time, but, you know, I like that kind of idea. I mean, the best way I could justify it when I was writing it was the Batman symbol thing, you know, that it's like a target, you know, it's a distraction, and a half-naked woman fighting you might be a distraction. But I don't know if it's really a distraction when all the other dudes are half-naked too. Like, who's really gawking at anybody in a world where everybody's running around in loincloth? And I don't know. It's comic books, though. I think anytime we think too hard about comic books, we're doing a disservice for ourselves. I mean, Batman has a cape on. Have you ever tried to sit down in a cape? You can't. You can't get in and out of a car with a cape. So, like, as soon as we start thinking about, oh, the armor doesn't make sense, well, the whole world doesn't make sense. You know, it's weird what parts of a premise we'll glom onto and say, oh, well, if Bruce Wayne was really all that rich, then he should use his money to help the poor instead of fighting crime and beating up on poor people or, you know, victim of his corporate crimes or whatever. You know, the dude is wearing a cape. You can't fight in a cape. You can't do anything in a cape but look cool. I'm just as guilty as that, though. You know, I sit there and, you know, I love Batman, but I definitely have those same issues. But then I question myself. Like, well, it's a completely unrealistic thing in the first place. Why am I putting any real-world expectations onto Batman? Or Red Sonja. Hell, maybe she just likes the armor. I don't fucking know. Oh, that looks like I'm gonna give her shoulder pads. Shoulder pads are coming. Look at that. I didn't know that was gonna happen. Sometimes that's what's fun about just sketching is you just don't. Well, my problem is I don't think enough, I think, with my art in general, which is probably why I was talking about like that storytelling aspect of pinups. I tend to work too instinctively. I mean, it serves me. I have a good career because of it and stuff, but like, I do think it would serve me better if I could think a little bit more about some of the stuff. But then I wouldn't have a surprise, like, why am I putting these shoulder pads on her? I don't know. Does any of this make sense? I really feel like I'm rambling. I can ramble. How about I just shut up a little bit and you just listen to the pen, because I don't know what I'm saying. Well, it looks like I should cover her eye, because if I have her eye like partially showing, like even that corner, it's going to be weird. So I'm going to cast a shadow, which means now the light is going to come from this direction. I don't have to do too much indications because I kind of know it. Chin is kind of weak. All right, I think that's good enough for the pencils. Now, typically what I normally would do is use a pen like this ballpoint pen, pardon me, and just draw the outlines. And you've seen this in some of my layouts before. Okay, it's almost like a cell animation. Like I'm not doing any rendering at all, just the outlines of the details. And then lightbox it or blue line print it, and then ink it that way. But this is kind of just for a quick fun. And maybe I'll do that later with this. I'll kind of re-ink it, but I'm just gonna use a combination of this Kawatuki brush pen, the FUD something, I don't know how to say it, and it's not written in English on the pen, but it's great. This is great little, it's almost like a brush and this little pen tip. There's so many different pens like this. This one I was turned on to by Elsa and Sammy through their books and stuff. The Kawatuki brush pens are the best, I think. This is really my favorite. And I've inked so much stuff with just this brush pen. Whoops, look at that, I'm low in ink. But this is what I love about it is it's a refillable cartridge, and I can take a syringe, which you can order off of Amazon if you can get them now. Fill it with your own ink. Take out the ink that's in here because it's not waterproof, and fill it with something else. All right, so I'm gonna use a different brush pen because that one's out of ink and I don't wanna stop to replace it. I think the ink in this, I think this is basically the same pen brush I just showed you, except just a cheaper handle. I think the ink's okay in here. Well, first, I'm going to hand draw. I'm going to use this ballpoint pen. I'm going to hand draw the sword. Sometimes I like this cheaper sketchbook paper compared to really good drawing paper because of the way it can bleed a little tiny bit, but not too much. Especially if I stop like that. See just these little tiny, I don't know what you call it, but like it just gets thicker there from the little bleeding. It just gives it like a feeling of a texture or dent or something. It's kind of inexplicable. It just adds this little tiny bit of energy that I like. And you can't get that with a digital pen. Not unless you go in and take the time to really fake it, but that's completely impractical. Chunky little studs. I figured this wouldn't be jewelry. Oh shit, now I just drew a happy face. See, this is a problem with not thinking, right? With just being too... Oh my god, it's ridiculous. What can I do with this? What can I do? Well, alright, I guess I can... I'm just gonna make that black in here. Just break the shape up a little bit. Ah, fuck it. That's as good as it's gonna get. Not so bad. Let me see. Side of her face. Oof, I can tell you, this is not going to be a home run. But let's hang in there, folks. Well, usually I don't do a double line like that. Usually I just make sure that I use the correct thickness on the brush. This is going to be fairly loose. I'm going to try and leave some negative spacing in here. Let's give her some funky fingerless gloves. Help her grip that sword better, right? I'm going to use this brush pen, the Karatuki Fudogochi, please forgive me, for the armor. And these details I'm doing with this pen, I could actually do with the brush pen as well. But because this has a limited give to it versus the brush, which is longer, it can help me control these smaller details a little bit better than the big brush. It kind of depends on the thing, on what I'm actually illustrating. I can't always tell why one tool is better than the other. I can just feel it. Like I said, I am a very instinctive artist. And my instincts aren't always right, but that's my process. So I'm bunching these closer together as they get lower and closer to the sides to help describe the shape. Like that. And normally I would move this all around and stuff, but I've got this rubber thing on here to keep my iPad in place, and frankly, it's really hard to pull off. It does a great job at keeping the iPad still, but it's hard to move. It's almost comically hard to move. Otherwise, I'd be moving this thing around. Ugh, I don't like that. But, you know, whatever. It's just a sketch. I also, one of the other few things I dislike about drawing analog is I have to wait for ink to dry. I can see that's wet here and I could smear it. It's one of the reasons why I wear this is sometimes it will actually absorb the ink instead of smear it if I accidentally touch it. Also, all the lead that I'm saving from not going into my bloodstream, I think is probably a good thing. And it helps my hand move when I'm doing like a long brush line, you know, like, see if I can get this all on camera. So that's going slightly thin to thick. Let's try it again. So with the, if that was just my palm, it would give a little too much resistance. So the brush really helps. I mean the brush, the glove. Definitely leaning into my old Bruce Timm influences here a little bit more. That's sloppy. But that's okay. This is a sketchbook inking job. You know? Felt like that just needed more shape up here, but I don't like that. Looks like just like she's got a fucking ramp for a head. But if I go ahead and redo this, like, you know, like I said, just blow it up onto like 11 by 17 or such, I'll fix the weird hair stuff. And some of the other things too. Generally with hair, oh, I don't like that either. I try and think of the hair as almost sculpted single shape. Like I don't like to do a lot of, or any sort of feathering into the hair and stuff, you know, very few. And even this stuff, just a couple of things to indicate a few loose hairs. But yeah, think of the hair as a solid shape. Or that's what I do anyway. I mean, obviously I have a simplified style. Can I salvage that? Let's see. It looks a little bit better. I'm trying to think of what expression she would actually have here. I guess she's ready. She's confident. Let's give her a little bit of eyelid because shit. Because she's relaxed. She's not like wide-eyed with like, oh shit, here we go. And maybe she's too relaxed now. She's had a glass of wine first. It's interesting. The other interesting thing to me about Red Sonja and a lot of female characters, you know, people like to draw them like super sexy or sexualized, like I just did these lips. But maybe it's just my age and stuff. Like I find a sexuality in a character like Sonja isn't who she is, not the bikini that she's wearing. And anytime I see her in like a quote sexy pose, you know, like the butt out and stuff, I don't get it. Like if you want something overtly sexual like that, well, just get a Playboy or some porn or something. You know, Sonja's plenty sexy without her having to bend over a dead body or whatever. I don't like that hand too much, but oh well. Almost there, guys. Almost done. Almost free of my rambling. My half-finished, incomplete thoughts. I was watching this video by this amazing artist, Peter Hahn. I'll put a link in the video. And he's like me, but like way better when it comes to just working instinctively. Like he has a whole video on it. It's pretty amazing. And he's one of these guys that just draws straight with a pen. Doesn't do any penciling. And it's, you know, it's fucking fantastic. But unlike me, he can talk the whole time and make sense. Like he's giving lessons, intense, very quick verbal lessons as he's drawing. And I was just like, holy shit, how does he do that? I have no idea if with any of the things that I said make any sense. Or if I expressed myself correctly, or, you know, was being insulting to other Sonja artists and stuff. I don't know. Because I'm not good at talking and drawing at the same time. I think I can get away with this without actually drawing a line there. Keep that negative space. Just do some little texturing details. One of the problems with a brush like this versus a traditional brush is how similar the lines will be when you lay it down. Sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes it's a bad thing. Like this is great if I was trying to make this pattern on purpose, but like when you saw here, I did a couple of these and they look the same, and it's shitty and artificial. Whereas if I did it with a brush has this unpredictable pattern to it. So it'll lay down just a very different vibe each time, you know? You can get these minor variations that it's harder to get out of pens and brushes that are manufactured artificially. And just remember when you listen to me, whether I'm talking about Red Sonja or art, I don't know anything special. I don't have any insights that that are correct. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying they're not right either. Everybody has a different point of view. And it's up to you as a artist, as a creator, as a fan, what versions you like. So even though I'm being goofy on like the over-sexualization of Red Sonja, yeah, if that's your thing, there's a time and a place for everything, and fine, cool. We just live in weird times where everybody's has to have an opinion and everybody has to express it. Sometimes it's fine to not have an opinion. Like you never see me online going on about stuff like this because I don't know, what's the point? All right, almost done here, guys. Just gonna do some filling these shadows. I'm gonna have to emphasize where this lighting is coming from a little bit better. Ooh, I don't like that at all. That's okay though. Let's see if we can fix it. So because I put such an emphasis on that shadow here, now I've got to make sure that other parts of the drawing match that level of heaviness that I added to it. That chin is way too thin still, I think. Even in this cartoony style, it's a little much for me. but it's not a deal breaker. I'm still proud to show this. Proud enough. And like I said, I can light box this later, clean it up more, work out some of these kinks. Like one of the things I hate, and I almost did it here, is kind of faking a brush line. Like here's a tiny version. Like if I do that instead of just doing that, there are minor, teeny, tiny changes that are imperfections to the contour that projects to you subconsciously that this was made in great effort versus this, which is effortless. Might be, I don't know if that even translates in this video or not, but that's why I think it's important to get those brush strokes down, because if you don't, it just says to the reader, this is a road bump, that this was inauthentic? I don't know. Maybe I'm full shit. Didn't I say earlier, like, I think we think too much about things, we break it down too much and put weird metaphors into things where they don't necessarily need to be. And here I am, deconstructing my work. But I'm fairly neurotic. So my brain is full of like contrasting, conflicting thoughts all the time. Maybe next time I should just shut up. All right, this is basically done. I'll try to angle this better too next time. See, the image gets kind of warped because the camera, phone is at an angle, you know? Deepen these shadows. But I'm only doing it on her glove, not her skin, because the glove is just a different color. It's a different value, even though this isn't black and white. This is a good way to express that, I think, is to show that different fabrics have different values, and light value means like how dark or light something is, like a color. There's a dark gray, a blue, a light gray, how it contrasts against other stuff. And even in black and white, you can indicate that different fabrics have different textures and different light qualities, like how it interacts with light. I'm gonna leave that kind of dry brush there. Let's emphasize that light coming from the left side a little bit more. Her breasts are too big for what I intended, I mean. And just so you guys don't think I'm a total prude, you know, I love drawing nudity and stuff. I do some life drawings with that flat pen. I think just my attitude is, you know, context, time and a place for everything. God, would you see any of her eye over here? I don't know. But I think it's probably best if I leave it as is. Just put a little, let's get a different pen. Let's do this guy. Actually, let's use this pen again. Just put some light texturing. Little chunks in her armor. Just a tiny, tiny bit of rendering down there. Just to show that these gauntlet things on her arms are a different fabric or a different texture than her skin. Her skin isn't going to have any of that. Let's put some dings into the sword. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's have some fun. The sword is just going to be black with blood. And I've got the shadow over here, right? So I don't want to actually bring the blood too much into the shadow. So let's do it like this. So blood is on there, it's kind of like dripping down, but I'm keeping it mostly on this side. I want to make sure here I don't put a line here because I'll kind of create this tangent that goes where her face would be, but you can't see it because behind the sword. So if I put a line there, I have to be really careful to not go this direction at all. But I don't want to put a line there at all or any detail, so I'm just going to skip down to here. And I'm just going to call it done. Pull this down for a sec. Like I said, I'll probably redo this later. Like I'll get it out of this flimsy sketchbook and redo it. Also, oh shit. I can tell how lopsided her breasts look, even though she's to the side here. So I'm gonna add just a little bit. I'm gonna hold this with my hand, so I apologize if it's really shaky. I'm not sure if that's an improvement or not. Actually, it's not. Because I got this weird, the scales here, it makes it kind of a tangent, so it kind of looks like a line there instead of two separate pieces. Also, I gotta wait a bit to erase this, but I'll place that at the end of the video or the beginning of it so you can see it. But that's basically it, warts and all. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you guys are safe and holding together. Reach out to each other, check in on each other, share what you can. And I'll see you here regularly. Take care, guys.